We are live. Hello, everybody. Come on in. Have a seat. The chat's open. Welcome to come in. We might have a rough time pulling in a crowd this morning because Daphne isn't going to be with us.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she had to bow out at the last minute last night for some reason.
Oh, wow.
House problems or
just
scheduling problems or who knows. If she's like us, we're having our Christmas this weekend because it's the only time we can get the whole family together. Well, and we're not supposed to have the whole family together, but the whole family was together yesterday, so it's too late. They can't tell us we can't have it. We had them here in the house. We didn't have the whole family, but it was a little, just like one or two people over their limits.
So. Yeah. I think the only people in our house on Christmas Day will be Helen and I, with nobody else is coming round.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen with us on Christmas Day. Yeah,
but we're in everybody's bad books. That's probably why. So.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness there's like StreamYard and that where Skype and that where everybody can actually still see each other. They just can't be next to one another, and everybody misses out on those hugs. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. We have one person watching. Come on in. It's early Sunday. We know it's early. Come on in, folks. Don't be afraid. We don't bite. This is all going to be old dudes talking comics today. So we're not sure who may show up. I put out a lot of invitations again to the folks that probably aren't awake this early in the morning. Exercise Studios. Morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Morning.
I can't never keep this. I have a rough time with names, and studio names are even worse.
I'd say that was Zygency.
Zygency? Yeah. Zygency Studios. That's got to be Joe D. McPhee. Joe, how you doing?
Joe,
how are you? Let us know. How's it all going? It's a Sunday morning. You're listening to the Sunday Funnies program for December 20th, 2020. The day before the Star of Bethlehem is to appear in the heavens, right? That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
All of the planetary alignments and one great big Jupiter and Saturn are getting together to look like one large star from where we're standing. So it isn't difficult because we are so very, very small. Come on in, everybody. There's our notice that we are officially live. Oh, I need to go over to our Facebook page and make us live for sure here. Give me just a second as I jump over to there and do this so folks can actually join in from my page. Here we are. Carol Kincaid already in the house. Carol, I hope you're doing okay. Hope you're listening in. It's all good. Come on in, everybody. Join in on the chat. It says, yes, it's me, Joe D. McPhee, on YouTube today. Hey, Joe. How you doing? Always nice to have you aboard, Joe. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to Indie Volt Radio yet.
Is that you with that costume, Joe?
I'm not even sure if Varian is even awake this morning. Probably not. He probably slept in too.
Oh, well, it's 10 past 2 in the afternoon where I am, so.
Well, there you go.
We've been up a while.
You could have slept in and still made the show. Yeah. He was up. I know Varian was up late last night, so he's probably sleeping in. We were talking at 3:00 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
He sent me a link for something. And
well, somebody's got to get up. Why does it have to be you?
Well, I asked for this assignment.
Right, okay.
I said, hey, why don't we start a program on Sunday morning, call it Sunday Funnies, because of the newspaper strips that always used to come.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of my youth growing up, was getting the paper.
When they used to be big and colourful and before they were crammed into a little postage stamp area.
Exactly.
Nice artwork and stuff.
Yeah. Our local paper here has 8 pages. One of them is dedicated to puzzles. Wow. And all the rest of them are fit in like a jigsaw puzzle. So you have to read like Doonesbury, you have to read in a straight line. And then Prince Valiant is the size of, probably 5 by 7, 7 by 5. And it's shrunk really small. And
does Peanuts still run?
Peanuts runs classics. I think they're supposed to. I'm not sure if they have new ones that they're running. I don't think they do.
I remember 20 odd years ago, probably, well, no, 30 years ago now, I was in Ontario Airport in Los Angeles, near Los Angeles. And I walked into the reception, and behind the desk was this, like do you know that famous photograph of the Apollo 11 astronauts where they're all sitting in front of that moon?
Yeah.
Have you seen that one? And it was stuck on. It was as big as the wall behind this girl, and it was signed. It personally signed by those three. And I remember thinking that must be worth a fortune.
Wow.
And then round the corner was some original Peanuts artwork.
No way.
There were about 10 strips all mounted
at an airport.
At the Ontario Airport in Los Angeles, in California.
I sincerely hope they were bolted into the wall.
They were behind glass and everything. But
yeah.
I thought, geez, there must be those would be worth thousands, especially that photograph of Apollo 11 with all the signatures on.
Yeah.
I hope the guy's taking it down and taking it home. But this artwork, it's the only time I've ever seen any Schultz artwork.
Oh, really?
Peanuts, yeah.
Wow.
Held it, the original stuff.
Yeah.
And there were 10 or 12 pieces all mounted, and it was just incredible stuff,
There was a traveling exhibit that went through the Flint Cultural Center. We're the literally the birthplace of GM. Right. And we started the end UAW here in Flint. So our cultural center is bigger than anybody in the area realizes. And it's got a lot of it was funded by a lot of deep pockets at the time. Right. So, and that money became prestigious money. Right. So our art institute gets some phenomenal exhibits, and they have a theater in it, and it's really top notch. Our cultural center it rivals any major city's cultural center. Right. But they had a traveling exhibit of comic art one year that I was able to go in early on, because at the time I was doing the Flint Comics paper. This is just as the comics paper was starting up. So I was called in and I got to see some stuff firsthand. I was just sitting there trying to keep the drool in and going, whoa, They had an original pencil set sketch by I want to say Siegel. It's either Siegel or Schuster of Superman. Schuster then. I think. And it was incredibly small. It was incredibly small, and they were showing it under low light. A couple of Walt Kelly pogos, an original Peanut strip, a page from The Spirit, a page from just all of these super classic newspaper strips that were amazing. Is it
sort of folklore? I read somewhere that back in 1938-39, when Siegel and Schuster were doing the first Superman, if anybody wrote a letter to them, they'd send them a piece of artwork.
Oh, that's real likely.
And it's like,
I wouldn't doubt that at all.
So
there was a period I know at the Marvel offices that if anybody come by and visit, they just give them a piece of art for stopping by. Here, kid, here's a piece of art. And they had well, you got to understand, back then nobody had any concept. Siegel and Schuster were happy to sell the rights to Superman just to get the thing printed. Because they didn't think it was ever going to go anywhere. It was just a character for them that they created. They had no idea of the phenomenon that it was going to burst into.
Same with Kirby, wasn't it?
Well, especially with Kirby. It took a long time for him to catch up. So, and once he did, he's asking Marvel for his art, and they're like going, "What art? We don't know what you're talking about."
And it was all there, though, wasn't it?
No.
I thought most of it was.
A lot of it was there, but not not because they were, like I said, they were handing it out to kids. Yeah. And then there's the rumor that I've heard from multiple sources that when they did return the artwork, when they sent a bunch of artwork to Steve Ditko, he shredded it. He shredded it.
Yeah, I heard he used it as a cutting mat.
Yeah. Like, whoa.
but he says in the interview about that it doesn't belong to him. It's done. He don't care, and the character's not his, so he's not interested. Or wasn't interested. I mean, I find that really, I don't know. I can't work that one out.
Well, even thinking Randian, it was a product of his work. A lot of that material was a product of his efforts.
Yeah. And, at least that physical artwork he was using as a cutting board was his.
Yeah.
Whether he own the character or not, or whatever the dispute was. That he still had that piece of board. He could have sent it to me.
Yeah, and there was hardcore value in it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But at the time, I'm sure he was so mad at Marvel for many years. He would go back to Marvel for quite a few years. Once he broke up with Stan, he went out and did work anywhere.
Yeah, he did Thunder Agents, didn't he, and things like that. Was it Nomad?
Oh, he jumped all over the place. He did a lot of self-publishing work. He was everywhere. In fact, he had a neighbor across the street that was doing erotic art, sequential art. That if you go in and you look, their styles mesh surprisingly well. Some people say that he did more than help him out on a number of occasions. But Ditko has such a distinctive style. And
of course,
you can look at his artwork and go, oh, that's Ditko right there. Just like Kirby. You see a piece of Kirby and you know exactly who it is.
I also read that I think this probably would be in the mid-'60s, maybe mid-late 60s, when they were trying to do deals with animation studios and things, especially from Japan, that Marvel would give them, they'd ask for, like, what do you want? And they'd say, well, Spider-Man cover, and they'd give them a Ditko cover and this kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know whether that's true or not. That's what I read. To help steal the deal.
Yeah, had them sitting in there on a shelf, and okay, here.
Yeah. They don't care. Don't imagine that.
Not surprising. Not surprising at all.
Oh dear.
We did have Varian in the background for a minute. I think he wanted to make sure that we were still alive and awake this morning. He kind of snuck back out. Either that or he's mad that the Cheetos in the green room were stale. One or the other. Christopher says, you're live. Yes, Cameron, Christopher Payne. Yes, we are live. We are live. Come on in, everybody. Thanks for listening. Good morning, Comic Belt, Black Belt. Russ Leach in the house. Only death can save us. In the house. Thank you for coming on board. I forgot a thing this morning. Not sure. Oh, okay. Yep. All right. Yep. Varian may or may not be with us this morning. So, but we do have other calls out there. Russ, if you want to be part of the conversation, you're very welcome to contact me. I'll be happy to send you a link. So anybody out there who knows who I am, wants a link, send me a request through IndieVolt. Send me a request through Facebook. I'll be happy to send you a link this morning. We may put it in the chat here in a minute, especially if Glenn and I run out of things to talk about, but somehow I don't think that's possible.
No.
And we get to talk, and we've talked off camera about a lot of the different things that you've done. Are you about to put Comics Unlimited to press here soon?
Yeah, issue 4 is out in mid-January.
Okay.
And we've got our own Mark Darden in there. He wrote me a piece. We've got Mark Darden. We've got Asterix. We've got Dreadstar. We've got John Floyd, the Marvel and DC inker, wrote me a nice piece about his relationship and interaction with Joe Sinnott. Cool. The late, great Joe Sinnott. And he's also drawn me a cover for the issue 4, which I think you have there somewhere.
Yeah, I do. I'll have to pull that up.
Okay. And it's really good. I'm really pleased with this issue. I mean, I'm biased, but I think they're getting better all the time. We've got some great stuff in there. We got I've written a piece about Jack Kirby in that issue, which is out in mid-January. We've got a nice piece by a friend of mine on indie films. It's a really mixed bag, well worth checking out. But then again, I would say that. And the rest. He's doing okay.
Yeah, good.
He's doing all right, but I'm not as well as I'd like.
And again, everybody coming in and to our radio audience, you're listening to the Sunday Funnies here on the IndieVolt Radio Network for December 20th, 2020. We're going to run the opening, then we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to talk more. So hang on, everybody. Here is the opening. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I am your host, Randy Zimmerman. I go by Randy Zim. I am a longtime alternative and independent comics creator. I've done everything that you can imagine in this comic market and then some. For the last 10 years or so, I've done my own newspaper that I gave away around in my local county. I freelanced for all sorts of independent and alternative companies. I printed under the Arrow Comics banner. It's going to end up being 4 times here coming up. And I've been, right now, I'm an award-winning commercial and graphic artist whose specialty is sequential art for advertising and educational purposes. If you've ever seen The Preservers, there was an episode on Animal Planet. I did a funny animal superhero team for the Genesee County Parks and Recreation Association, which led to a nice national gig for the National Recreation and Parks Association a few years back, where I created a set of superheroes for them as well. So welcome aboard, everybody. I have a guest this morning, Mr. Glenn Flemming, writer, artist. Yep. Glenn Flemming.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself, Glenn.
I'm Glenn Flemming from England, and I've written and published, I think it's 10 books now. I write about different things. I've written about sports. I've written 2 science fiction novels. I've written and drawn a children's book called The Little Green Tree. I wrote a book about the astronauts, the NASA astronauts who didn't go to the moon for one reason or another. I've written a book about Jack Kirby and stuff like that. And I also publish Comics Unlimited, which you can get via Amazon. We were just saying about the issue 4 is out in January. That's a 100-page bi-monthly magazine about comics. We get interviews of people in there. We've got lots of articles, lots of artwork. I'm currently writing a book about New York, my travels to New York, and a couple of other novels as well. And I keep busy, try to keep busy. Oh, and by the way, Super Spies is out there as well. That's another magazine about TV series like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and James Bond and that kind of thing. And that came out a few weeks ago. That's another 100-pager.
And that's also available through Amazon.
Yeah.
Your best bet would be to get up there and look under Glenn B. Flemming.
Yeah.
Under Amazon and have all the different books come up, because there are a lot of varying topics. Yeah,
I wrote an account of my dad's, I don't know what the word is, adventures on D-Day. He was a paratrooper in the 6th Airborne Division, British 6th Airborne Division, and he was at Merville Battery. He had to stop, he and his colleagues had to stop the guns firing on the beaches for the D-Day landing. I've written about that. I also did some illustrations for that as well. I just try, I have a varying writing stuff. I don't suffer from writer's block. I just go and write about something else. I've also published a book called Rapa Nui, which is about Easter Island, which is the remotest inhabited place on Earth. I went there a few years ago. That's got lots of photographs in there, and it's based on my diary and sort of a history of the country as well. It's a fascinating place, and it's like I say, it's the remotest inhabited place on Earth. If you can get there, do it. It will completely do your head in.
Yeah,
because those giant statues are there, and all those guys are there. There's 800 of them. 800
spread around the island.
Yeah, they're all around it, and they're all. Well, it goes into the history of it, and Captain Cook finding it, and Tohai Adal, and all this kind of stuff. It's really, not my writing, but I found the place fascinating, which is obviously why I went there.
Yeah.
And that was based on when I was about 11, 12. Mr. Clarkson, our English teacher, he read us one of Tohai Adal's books called The Kon-Tiki Expedition.
Okay.
Which he proved the islanders don't like being associated with South America. They want to be associated from the West in Polynesia.
Okay. Yeah, they're connected to Peru now, aren't they?
They are now
physically connected, but they are considered to be part of Peru.
Well, there's a fantastic wall, and it's it's like an Egyptian type of thing. It's not that big, but it's a wall, and the rock it's cut from fits together so precisely you can't put a piece of paper between it. And these guys were supposed to have tapped at this with obsidian tools for 3 weeks, made these perfect right angle corners and stuff like that. And it's clearly something else going on there. But this wall, there's no other wall, or I should say, there are no walls like this in the entire area of Polynesia. But there are walls like that in Peru and up in the Inca Trail, and all this kind of culture. But I think, and then I had a couple of not arguments, but tense discussions with a couple of the locals about this. They weren't happy about. I don't know why, but they weren't happy. But now it's been proven that in DNA tests that they do have South American Indian or indigenous, whatever you call it, people in them. So they'll be really pleased about that. So I want to go back and point that out to these guys.
Oh,
look at this. You are wrong.
Just to have a more spirited discussion.
Yeah, why not? Do you know what they did to me? These guys. I went to. I was staying at this guy's. He had like a motel type of thing. I was renting a room, and he took me into town, and we went to this coffee shop, and all his friends were there. And there's about 10 of his friends were there. So he introduced me to his friends, and I went to look around, and they were all drinking coffee. And then I went to look in this little shop next door, and then when I came back, they were all eating pastries and cake and biscuits and stuff. And then when they went, and then I sat, then they went. They said, "We're going now," and they all went, and I sat down and had a coffee, and I got a bill for something like $35, and I bought all their pastries.
They stiffed you on the bill.
Yeah. So, but they're all right. They're just like everybody else. They're just people.
Hit the new guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he must be rich because he's come halfway around the world.
Yeah.
But that's a fascinating episode. I went there for 3 weeks, and it's just a great place if you want to lose yourself.
Sounds like it.
Well, the why fascinating. The statues are absolutely brilliant. You can see. they cut them out of the quarry at a place called Tongariki, and some of these guys are. The island is only 7 miles long. It's shaped like a triangle, and its longest point is about 7 miles. And at Tongariki is at one end, and then at the other end is these 30-foot, 60-ton why standing there, and they rolled them along on trees, like they did in Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something else going on there, I think.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
You never know.
You could have come up with a lot easier way to transport that we just are not.
Well, they said they rocked them as well. They tied rope to the top of it and rocked it for 7 miles. No,
sure.
I don't.
Tip,
yeah,
tip, rock. Yeah.
This is after they cut them out of the solid rock with the obsidian blades.
It's chipped away at it until it was. Yeah. Sure.
But they are impressive. They're very impressive.
Anybody who's seen them will go, yeah, okay, yeah, they chipped those away. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that wall's just a coincidence, It's no Peruvian influence in there. But they're okay. People are okay.
And how long of a flight is it from Peru to East Island?
Well, when I came back, I didn't stay over. I'll tell you what I did. When I came back, it's a 6-hour flight from Rapa Nui to Santiago in Chile.
Okay.
And then it's a 14-hour flight to Madrid, Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a 3-hour flight to England.
Okay.
But when I was coming back, I decided, when I went out, I stayed in Santiago for a couple of days just to get my head clear. But on the way back, I didn't bother doing that. So I flew, I think I was flying for about 32 hours.
Ooh.
I left on Thursday morning on local time, and I got home at midnight on Saturday. And I was in the air most of that time. But the only time I was down for it sort of went 6 hours from Rapa Nui to Santiago, 2 hours down, 14 hours to Madrid, 6 hours down, and then 3 hours home, and then another hour from the airport. I got home about midnight on Saturday night. It was crazy. Plus, there's the time delay as well. Time difference. So
because you were losing time the whole time from Chile to Madrid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's a long haul, but I enjoy it. I like traveling. I've been around the world, and I like traveling. When I was younger, I went to India, trekked across India for 6 weeks, and I was just having this conversation with Helen a while back, saying the main difference now is the photography, where you've got your iPhone and you've got your digital and all that. Because when I went to India, it was film, and I didn't take enough photographs. I've only got about, I don't know, 50 photographs of the place.
Yeah.
But when I went to Easter Island with 2 digital cameras and camcorders, I took over 1,200 photographs.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
And I obviously could have taken more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the regrets, really, for the places I've been, that they're not really well documented.
Yeah.
I remember reading Buzz Aldrin said that the only thing that he would change on his flight is that he could have taken a digital camera, because they had to load film magazines as well. So
that's how long ago it was, though.
That's how long. That's 50 years, isn't it? So
keep putting canisters in. Yeah.
So yeah, it's but I do like traveling. I've not been able to travel these past few years, but especially with this COVID thing.
Yeah.
But I do like traveling. Yeah.
Practically nobody's done any traveling, at least no leisure travel.
No,
the last year probably won't for the next year at the rate that they're talking.
That's right. But I was. We should be talking about comics, shouldn't we?
We're talking about you and the books that you do. Dude,
right.
So many. You've done so many varying topics.
The first published was about football, or soccer, as you call it.
Yeah.
Which was about the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup. That was the first one that was published. And then I wrote 2 about the Kennedy assassination.
Okay.
And then I did a children's book.
And what to get off topic even farther, what fascinated you about the Kennedy assassination, being a Great Britain resident?
Well, thanks. What happened was, I remember it happening. I was only 8, but I remember it happening. I remember my mum and dad were crying and stuff like that. I didn't really understand what had gone on. I knew the guy died, but you don't know what that is when you're 8, do you?
Sure.
And I remember clearly. Do you remember when you'll have seen it? You won't remember it, but you'll have seen it when Oswald gets shot.
No, I don't remember Oswald being shot. I do remember my mom crying a lot and
Right.
saving the newspaper supplement. And I remember the funeral, because I remember the picture of young
The little kid, John Kennedy,
Jr. standing there in his coat and saluting, because I was about maybe a year or 2 older than that.
Right.
And
right.
that image is just burned into my mind. Yeah.
Well, when you've seen the film though, when Ruby shoots Oswald, I remember my dad saying they'd done that to shut him up.
Yeah.
And I was only 8, and I just remembered him saying that. Mm-hmm. And then 10 years later, a friend of mine had a magazine called Time Out that's published over here. Mm-hmm. And it had a big article. It was 10 years since the shooting. They had a big article about it. So I read it, and I couldn't put this thing down. And every time I went to his house, I read this magazine, and eventually gave it to me because he was sick of seeing me looking at it. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, this article, there was the bibliography of books. Excuse me. So I checked out these books, and it went from there. And then in 1978, I went to Dallas when the House Select Committee on Assassinations were there doing a reenactment.
Okay.
And got it. I was interviewed on Dallas radio, and went around the various sites. I got taken around all the sites by a Dallas policeman in a police car in the middle of the night, which was quite incredible.
I bet.
And just wrote about that. And I used to publish a magazine called Undercover in the 90s, which was about all that kind of stuff, Robert Kennedy and UFOs and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you call it. What would you call it?
Almost like an X-Files.
That kind of a thing. Yeah. And so
Fortean Times kind of thing.
Yeah, I had an article published in that as well.
Yeah, okay.
And that led me on to writing the books. I've been writing this book for ages at the time, and it just kept getting pushed to one side and everything, and then new information would come out. Mm-hmm. So when I do my writing, I try and put a different slant on things.
Sure.
When I wrote the football book, I wrote about the 10 best players who had worn the number 10 shirt in the World Cup, which is, you may have heard of Pele and Maradona and these people.
Yeah. I've heard of Pele, yeah.
Yeah, and they wore that number 10. It's an iconic shirt. So I wrote about that because there's a million books about the World Cup.
Sure.
And then when I came to writing about the Kennedy assassination, I thought, well, again, there's another million books about which bullet came from where and who did what and all that. So I wrote it from the point of view of Oswald. I was Lee Oswald. It's his thoughts, which obviously nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote it from his point of view. So if you read the book, there's a lot of stuff that we know that he didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it came out later and stuff, and he knew he was being set up and everything. And I did it from that point of view. And that's what I like to do. I like to write a different kind of slant on things because, like I said, there's a million books about everything. So,
sure,
you know, and that's when I wrote my dad's book, you know, about the parachute jump in D-Day. Again, there's millions of books about D-Day. So I wrote it from not from his point of view, but from what he did. What you know, it's a fictionalized account because obviously I wasn't there and he's not here. Etc. So I do like to write different things from and from a different point of view, you know.
So what brought you to writing about comics?
Well, I've always read comics, like most kids, and I sent you my Jack Kirby documentary, didn't I? On there, I talk about this, and what happened was, as a kid, I used to write and draw my own comics and things like this. I used to look at the artwork more than the stories. But we used to get things like the Beano and Dandy. I don't know if you've seen those.
And those for our folks that might not be aware of, those are like humor magazines.
Yeah. They're like Peanuts and things like that. Just simple drawings, you know, good drawings, but just simple ones. And I was never sort of quite enamored with these things. And then one day my brother brought home Strange Tales 136, which is John Severin over Kirby layouts.
Okay.
And this just blew me away. So, and as you will know, I think it was on page 4, there was always an advert for 4 other Marvel comics.
Yeah.
So I said to him, he was older than me, so he had the money. I said, are these comics there? And he said, yeah. So he bought them all. And it went from there. And then I always wanted to, you know, meet these people and everything like that, but you couldn't do in the early 70s. I don't think there were any conventions, and if they were, they'd be in America, so I wouldn't be able to get there.
Yeah.
And then they started to come over here, and I met people like Alan Moore and Barry Windsor Smith and Gene Colan and not Gene Colan, Gil Kane, and those kind of people. But I always wanted to meet Kirby, but I wasn't even sure whether he was alive or not. So anyway, then he published, I think it was Captain Victory and Silver Star. So and those were new,
both from Pacific Comics.
Yeah,
out on the West Coast. Yeah,
yeah. So he was obviously still alive.
Yeah. So
what I did was I remembered that he lived from the. I looked in the New Gods and you know, Mr. Miracle and things like that. And you could write to him at this place called Thousand Oaks in California. So this was in the back of my mind. Anyway, I went on holiday to Barbados and met these 2 American people who were from California. And I asked them if they lived in Anaheim. And I asked them if they knew where Thousand Oaks was. And Bob, the guy, said, yeah, that's about an hour from where he lives. And we got friendly with these people. In fact, they were getting married and I was the best man and my former partner was the matron of honor. So that's how close we were to these people over about 3 days, right? I was best man at his wedding. And anyway, so when we came back, I'd mentioned this Thousand Oaks, obviously, and about the Jack Kirby, and they didn't know who Jack Kirby was, which was quite incredible. But I got this letter a few weeks later when we got back. There was a letter came and it had Jack Kirby's phone number in it. And I thought this was a joke. I thought this is going to be an expensive joke to ring this number.
So I rang somebody over there had sent you Kirby's.
Yeah, Suzanne, the Bob and Suzanne had sent me checked it out, and they said
found him in the phone book.
Yeah, then they spoken to him. They rang him up and spoke to him.
Oh, cool.
So I had this phone number, and I had this phone number for weeks. I thought it was just a joke. Anyway, my former partner said, "Well, just ring it, ask. If it's not, put the phone down." So I rang it, asked, and it was Ros Kirby, and she put Jack on, and I talked to him for about an hour, asked him if I could go out there, and that's how I ended up going to his house.
Sweet.
But from the artwork side of it, I've always drawn things and been interested in that kind of artwork. And I paint now and do also. I do illustrations rather than comic work. Okay. I do all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. At least try to.
Just like your writing.
Yeah. I just like doing different things.
Yeah. Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when I got to Kirby's house, you couldn't meet two of the nicest people, you know. And they took me into this room. Ross said to me, "You want to see this?" And they just got a delivery from Marvel and DC of artwork. And there were these brown envelopes. And they were all closed. They just got them yesterday, you know, the day before or something.
Yeah.
And she said, "Open some." So I picked up this parcel and I opened it, and it had original artwork from Kid Colton, stuff like that, from 1962 or something.
Yeah.
And they hadn't seen it. Jack hadn't seen this work since he put it in the envelope to send it or took it to the office, you know. And I had these things, and she just said, just open them. So I just started opening all these envelopes. I held in my hands, Randy, the original pencil work for the New Gods graphic novel that Greg Theakston did a painting for the cover.
The Hunger Dogs book.
Hunger Dogs book. And because I was going to ask him, I've obviously got the book, and Jack signed it for me, but Greg had done an oil painting, I think it is, or you know, that kind of thing, of the cover. And I wanted to know how that was done, whether it was painted over the artwork and the pencils and all that kind of thing. And I forgot. So I opened this envelope, and there was the pencil board and I thought, oh, when it's all smudged and everything, you think, oh, wow. And I held this thing, and then there were pages of Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer and all these things.
Wow.
You know, and he had all this stuff, and I think he'd got a delivery of about 200 pages at that point.
Man.
And it was just amazing.
Which was a very small.
Oh yeah, I think
the amount of work that he's done over the years.
That's right. He's supposed to have drawn something like 40,000 pages overall in his career, and in that 60s thing, it was something like 10 or 12,000. Yeah. So, and there was 50 in these envelopes, you know. So somebody's got some nice work somewhere. Probably that kid who sent a letter in.
Yeah. Well, like we were saying, they just handed him out there for a while.
Yeah. At
the office, "Hey kid, you want a piece of original art?" Yeah, this was actually used to print in the funny book, kid.
Well, you know that little thing you put at the end of the show where Jack Kirby says, "Comics will break your heart."
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine, he has a comic shop in Birmingham, about 100 miles from me, and he went down to I think it was IPC, the publisher. I'm not sure, Odhams or IPC. And they were moving offices, and they were cleaning out the artwork. So they told him he could go down and take any artwork he wanted.
Yeah.
And when he got there, you've heard of Dan Dare, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, when he got there,
for our non-aware audience, Dan Dare was very much like a Flash Gordon. Yeah. Actually, he was a spaceman working for the Rangers, keeping peace throughout the galaxy, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's right. From the 50s, he appeared in Eagle. Yes. And it was drawn by Frank Hampson, who was a really, really great artist.
Amazing artist.
And when my friend Phil got to the what was called the art room, the door was jammed open with a piece of board. And he sort of stubbed his toe on this board, and he kicked it out, and it sort of half unraveled. And when he opened it out, it was a piece of Dan Dare artwork that somebody folded over to jam the door.
Yeah,
you know, you think, Jesus, what are these people doing? You know, but he went in there and he took a lot of, with their permission, he took a lot of artwork, and he has a lot of artwork now. I think he deals it. I think he sells it. But a lot of British artwork from from Hotspur and things like that, comics that we had, Yellow Claw and that kind of thing.
Just sending out another invitation. Go ahead.
Okay. Something I didn't do. I must do this. I've got to do this. When I was doing Crikey magazine, which was a magazine about British comics about a decade ago, I got very friendly with people who created Dennis the Menace and things like that.
That's Dennis the Menace, the English strip.
Yes, not yours. Yeah. Dennis the Menace, the English one, yeah. He's in Beano and things like that. Yeah. And that is DC Thompson published that. They're a Scottish outfit. Anyway, got very friendly with them. And I don't know, I can't remember how this happened, but either I asked, because I'm a bit cheeky like that, I will ask, because I think if you don't ask, the answer's no. I said, could I come up and interview some of you guys for Crikey? Because they like Crikey magazine. They gave me lots of artwork to publish, and they were really good. And they said, yeah. And they said, not only that, we'll let you go into the archive where nobody's ever been, nobody apart from the people who work there. And they had artwork back from, I think it was 1887 or something, as far back as that, from newspapers. Yeah. And I was going to do a mega issue for them.
Now, back in that period, that would be more editorial cartoon.
Yes,
work.
Yes, yeah.
That's how cartoons actually, or comics, I should say, actually started, was branching off from editorial cartoons, because the publishers figured out that if you drew a likeness of a politician and put it in the paper or in the magazine, you would sell some. You'd sell more than just doing regular type. But if you drew that politician as a pig, you got a lot more sales. So
nothing changes, does it?
Everybody turned into elephants and donkeys and all of these politicians. That's how over here in the States, we have the Democratic and Republican Party that has the symbol of the donkey and the elephant. That's where this all came from. Because back in those editorial cartoons, they would draw your typical whatever party it was as an elephant. And that's how everybody in the paper would know that they were talking about that party as opposed to the donkey party. You know,
well, it's pretty much the same here, I think. But they invited me up there to do an article on it, and I didn't go. Crikey stopped being published. I told you about that with Borders and everything. Borders went down. I just stopped doing it. I just couldn't afford it. It lost a lot of money. Anyway, I should do that for Comics Unlimited, shouldn't I? To rekindle these friendships and get up there and go into that place and take some. I mean, even if I don't write about it, just to go and see it all, you know, because they've got this massive art room with all 100 years of artwork in it and more. You know, it must be amazing in there. I've got to try and get it.
Yeah, if it hasn't already been broken up and documented anymore, there's such a higher respect for art, for comic art, than what there was back during that period, sure, all around the world. But here in the States, we really didn't catch up to it until maybe 20 years ago at most. Right. So the collectors here would know that there were certain original art pieces that were worth more than others. But I remember doing conventions and seeing original art in stacks on tables. I mean, large stacks with a little piece of paper slapped on it, $25 a piece. You can just go through and sort through George Tuska or Herb Trempe artwork for $25, $35 a sheet. You know, and nowadays you never, everything's in portfolios, everything's well respected. Yeah. But that's because not only has the appreciation gone up, but the scarcity of it has jumped so high, because most everybody is working digital now as opposed to physical. So physical original art is getting rarer and rarer all the time.
Well, I think we might have mentioned this before, but you know, you've heard of Brian Bolland, the Judge Dredd artist.
Sure.
Fantastic artist.
Yes.
He's from what I can see, he's one of the most sought after original art people as well, because it's so good. Yeah. But I don't think he's produced, I might be wrong about this, but I don't think he's produced a physical piece of artwork for about 15, 20 years now. He does it on the computer. And I'm thinking, this guy must be really rich, because he could be selling these for thousands, you know what I mean?
All on the computer, it's all on the screen. Yeah.
I've tried. I've had a go at doing it, but I just like that pencil on the paper.
I had a shop down in Columbus, Ohio, which is about 5 hours away from my house, that I used to love going into, called Laughing Ogre, and they'd have original art along the wall, or up high above the racks. You know, they'd have original art in frames, you know, well respected, real beautiful stuff. And some of it was incredibly recognizable. It's the only time I've ever seen a piece of Brian Bolland that I remember up close. And he had the page from Camelot 3000 of Excalibur coming out from the atomic cooling pool.
Wow.
That's a full page splash.
And what
that's
price?
what I said to at the time. Was like, is that real?
Yeah.
Just like,
how much was what was the price on that, or was it just there?
Oh no, they were there for display. They weren't for sale.
Right.
That was, the owner at the time. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if he's the owner still or not. It's been a long time since I've been in the store, but he had his original art collection along the wall. Wow. He had a page, one of the 9-panel grids from Watchmen, and just really prestigious pages up there. That if you were a aficionado, you went in and went, "Oh yeah, that's cool."
Yeah. Wow.
But I remember that page distinctly from his collection. So.
Well, like I say, I don't know Brian Bolland, but that's one question I'd ask him. I'd ask him why he's gone to digital, because I can't, as an artist, I can't accept that you can. This is going to sound awful.
You can be opinionated on this show. Yeah. We are rated TVMA DLSV, so you can even be adult if you need to be. So.
I just don't understand how people can say they do this artwork and if they do the line wrong, they can just erase it and do it again. Well, just get it right.
Well, not everybody is a machine like what Kirby would do, because Kirby would sit there and circle, square, 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 and then he'd tighten it up and send it off on its way. To him, it was just, getting the idea. It was more precious to take the idea from his head and put it on the paper than the fact that it was on the paper, and especially some of the work that he would do later on in his career that design wise was just so amazing. Yeah, you'd sit there, the Captain Victory stuff, the stuff that very few people have actually sat and seen, because it's like his imagination ramped up the older he got.
Yeah,
and to the point where he was doing some really phenomenal stuff. I've heard he had books and books of characters, some of which still haven't been seen totally to this day. I've got a couple of trading card collections of artwork that Kirby had done. That was all stuff I had never seen.
Wow.
And I'm going through, here's a crazy car, here's a crazy a machine, here's an odd character that they created. The whole, what was it, Satanic Six or whatever, Satan Six?
Yeah.
They printed all off of individual characters that he had sitting in those books. It's just crazy the way his it's like his brain ramped up the older that he became.
Yeah, I think Silver Star is an underrated series as well. I think he only did. I think he only did 6 issues of that, didn't he?
Yeah, you're right.
I thought that was going places as well. But I think my greatest sort of regret when he left Marvel was the Eternals didn't go. And they made him put it in the Marvel Universe, didn't they, by introducing S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Hulk and all this kind of stuff. It's quite. You've seen that, the way he gets around the Hulk being in it, haven't you? It's a robot, isn't it? I don't think he wanted to ally the copyrights. I'm not sure about that.
Well, but, I'm sure he. This was again right before any of that material became precious.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where he knew he had said in interviews that he was eventually, you're going to see $1 billion movies out there that have these as soon as the special effects capabilities catch up to his imagination.
That's
which
right. Yeah.
Eventually it did, because he passed. It just caught up. But he knew back then that it was big. But he was doing work for hire back then. Every time he signed the back of his check, there was a rough work for hire contract there for him to sign away anything or any creation that he had done.
That's right.
For the company. But a lot of times he did that just to make a living too.
Of course, yeah. I think one of the greatest things he gave us was the Mother Box, which is obviously a mobile phone, isn't it? Yeah. It's the internet and everything. It's just
smartphone. Yeah.
Visionary. The best. Well,
there's a lot of craziness, and there still is. I mean, the level of imagination and anything from his New Gods material on is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the stuff from OMAC and even the work that he did on the Demon and all of the work, and a lot of that never had that respect over at DC that he deserved for doing the amount of just imaginary stuff that he did back then.
I don't think that. I always got the impression that they didn't really know what they had.
That's true too.
The coup was just to get him. And then they didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah.
It seems like I don't know. Again, it's just my opinion. I don't know, but it just seems like Carmine Infantino didn't know what to do with him. He just wanted to get him away from Marvel.
Yeah.
Their
Because
greatest creator, you know.
He was making them so much money. But then again, you had Stan that was probably reeling in a lot of what he was doing at the time. And granted, that was like bottling up the dam that was going to burst eventually anyway. You can't keep that kind of imagination in for very long. I think that he would have discovered, even if he had stayed at Marvel and not had ran to DC, eventually he would have discovered alternative comics. You would have gotten Captain Victory and Silver Star and a lot of that material anyway, because that was in his head and was going to.
Well, when he moved to DC, as you know, when he was doing New Gods, he was also doing in the days of the mob, because he saw the artwork, the stories and artwork being something rather than just a throwaway comic. And he did, was it Spirit World as well? He did that one, and that didn't take off. And I think it was to do with I don't think the public were ready for the format.
Well, no, the public was looking at the format. It was just such an oddball book, and it had very low distribution, at least here in the States. See a copy of either one of those magazines in the Day of the Mob or Spirit World. I think they've even been reprinted a couple of times because they are that rare. It's very hard to find a regular copy, and you don't see them very often at shows. But the black and white magazine format at the time was really blowing up. In fact, Gil Kane experimented with a number of different formats and did Savage. His name is Savage. That looked kind of a spy character that looked amazingly exactly like George Peppard, I think. George Peppard or one of the other big actors of the day. And he did a couple of paperback book novels called Black Mark. That Marvel ended up reprinting as in black and white, in the black and white magazine format. That was after the Apocalypse thing. So the guys back then were looking and like what we were saying, Wally Wood and Ditko and them sprung off and did Tower Comics, and they were out looking to get their work out there anywhere they possibly could, because they didn't like being under the main two-party system. You know?
Do you think that Mad Magazine had something to do with that kind of path as well? Because they're similar. They were producing stuff that wasn't for kids, weren't they? Really?
Well, I think Mad was an evolution from that. Mad was a answer to the Comic Code Authority for Gaines.
Yeah,
because Gaines also tried to put those strips into a couple of black and white magazines, very much like what Jim Warren ended up doing with the Warren publications. With Eerie, Creepy, Vampirella, and all of that entire line. And he was very successful with that line for many years. But it was a matter of getting it out there and having it be, having it be accessible. The distributors at the time were kind of hemming and hawing. You had a couple of other people that sprung out. I want to say Mort something, but I can't remember if Mort Flynn, somebody, the guy who tried to copyright the Captain Marvel character, did the Captain Marvel superhero character that split apart. It yelled "split," and his body part came apart. He ended up going out and doing his line of black and white magazines that everybody has seen. Very few people kept, because they weren't at Jim Warren level. They were a little bit more rougher, and that's where. What was it? Hell Biker. I think I want to say Terror Tales, Witches Tales. Those were the titles that he did. They're newsprint, black and white magazine format with a slick cover, saddle stitched around. That he was in competition with the Warren magazines at the time. So if you couldn't find a Eerie and Creepy, you ended up buying Voodoo Tales or Witches Tales or Terror Tales. That was his big titles.
With regard to the black and white format, they did a Spider-Man, didn't they? Romita did a Spider-Man. Was it 1960? Yeah, Marvel, was it 1968 they did that one, was it?
Yeah, but Marvel was also looking at the time. This is so different from today. Marvel was so willing to go out there and try different formats.
Yeah.
Back during the 60s and 70s. Yeah, they did a couple of black and white Spider-Man, but at the time they were realizing that Stan and the people at Marvel were realizing that their audience was aging and getting older. They can handle that, and the black and white magazines were doing well. So they tried a Spider-Man in black and white. I think they did one, maybe two issues of that, and then they quickly shut that down. And then it took them until the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken, to start up doing their own magazine line again. And then they did, I'm going to say Vampire Tales. Savage Tales was part of it, was one of those with Conan. Conan and Khazar, I think, started up in that, or was part of that. A lot of the more, that, and again, those black and whites too, they were aiming at a higher male demographic audience.
More mature, yeah.
More mature, yeah.
Yeah, because
and older, yeah.
Are those the Buscema wash ones? The
those came a little bit later.
Alcala inking.
You got Mike Plug in there doing a lot of the horror materials. Vampire Tales, I think it was, had Dracula running through it, because they had too much Dracula running with Gene Colan and Marv Wolfman writing during that period. That really classic run. If nobody's ever read that, that's I mean, granted, some of it comes across as dated in the 70s and that, but that work is still amazingly golden, very evergreen.
I'll tell you what I enjoyed, the artwork anyway, was Gene Colan's Nathaniel Dust, where it was taken from his pencils.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Could you imagine Kirby that? Imagine Kirby doing it, lifting, if you could lift the ink, if you could lift the inks off the artwork from the 60s artwork from the Fantastic Four. I mean, they will do one day. And
some of the Benny Coletta inked stuff, I think, where he detracted from the pencils quite a bit. But once Sanat come on, and on the Fantastic Four, I think it cleaned it up incredibly well.
Yeah, I think that was the best period. Yeah, that was wonderful stuff.
Phenomenal inker. And then the ones that came after him, Thurbo and even Theakston and Royer, knew enough to handle a thicker line and a brush and to dump the Crow pen and give Kirby that bold, dynamic inks that his pencils absolutely demanded. Yeah.
Didn't Kirby tell Royer not to change anything?
That's very likely.
And Lee told Sinnott to change everything because he makes all the girls prettier, doesn't he? And Reed more handsome and stuff like that.
That's the power of the inker, though. You get the ability of the inker. Sometimes you have that skill to follow the pencils exactly, and other times your style comes through. For example, you could never see a book that Tom Palmer had inked and not see Tom Palmer.
Yeah,
everything that he touched, it didn't matter. Gene Colan, anybody that came in. I had a guy, an artist friend of mine, that did an Avengers fill-in book that he was so happy with, and that Tom Palmer inked. And when he saw it in print, all he saw was Tom Palmer. That was it. Boom. And he was so depressed because he was like, none of my style came through. It was all Tom.
You know the Kirby Bicentennial Captain America with the different inkers in it. You can clearly see that Barry Smith has inked several pages of that. I mean, it's not a secret, but you can see it because it changes so dramatically. But it does work very well. I'd like to see more of that. You know, Smith on Kirby.
Yeah, you get these powerful artists on top of one another. All you get is just classic looks and just power. You know, there's a lot of, in the Thunder Agents, for example, there's a lot of Wally Wood inking over top of Steve Ditko. Right. You have that Ditko dynamics in the penciling part, and then you have this beautiful Wood inking. Wood to me is also one of those major inkers that, like Joe Sinnott, that he worked well into. You know, his eyesight was going quite a bit during the All-Star Comics run, but it looked so good and it looked so much like Wood. I think there was a time when he was down to just using felt markers because his hand-eye coordination was going. It still looked dynamic and beautiful. You know.
Well, yeah, he killed himself, didn't he, Wally Wood? He committed suicide, didn't he?
The rumor is he got up and couldn't see one day and struggled around and took his own life.
Cool bloke. But that happened to an English artist called Don Lawrence. He didn't kill himself, but he lost sight in one eye, and he had to sort of teach himself how to draw and ink again because he couldn't see the perspective of it and he couldn't get the feel for it. You know, it's really a shame.
Well, when you're a workhorse like that and you're at the board all the time, you're literally abusing your body. So it's so easy for the eyesight to get overly strained, for carpal tunnel to form, for tennis elbow to form, especially once you're working in one position. And of course, you get that wonderful artist hump from on the belly, that spare tire from working at the board for too long.
But you get always that. You don't have to work at the board to get that.
No, you don't. But when you're working at the board all the time, if you're like me, you can sit at 9 o'clock and suddenly it's 5 in the evening, and you're like, well, I guess I should have stopped for lunch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's so easy for the time to pass and for you to be absolutely stationary, and all of that food goes right to that belly.
Yeah,
really quick. And it's very easy to sacrifice your health when you're working for that weekly paycheck, sitting at the board, even sitting at a computer and drawing. Any of the artists that we have listening out there now will probably tell you that. Yeah, you get leg circulation problems, the weight problems. It's real easy for the blood sugar counts to go off kilter, and all sorts of wonderful.
You should go and walk through the fields for an hour.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't for my wife getting me up and on my feet at least once a day for a long walk around the neighborhood whenever it's warmer, I'd be twice as big. I absolutely know that. Wow. That without a doubt. Yeah. And we try to get up and walk around a lot more often. And the older you get, the quicker it is for you to store that weight. So,
yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. Especially when you're not moving at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back on the chat, we have good morning from Comic Book Black Belt. We were there. Joe says, why are the value of the scraps were treated that way then? I can understand the rights problems, but weren't there archives that needed to be maintained? No, nobody maintained archives back then, Joe. Nobody thought any of this stuff was going to be worth anything. Nobody had any idea. No, in fact, it didn't up until 20, maybe 30 years, the direct market and the fact that collectability, that people were willing to pay more money for stuff that was getting older. That was the real wake-up call to a lot of these artists that their artwork might actually be worth something. And you'll see you go through and you look at the collectability market and you look at the different stages. I was sticker shocked a few years ago to go out and find the books, the Kirby books that I used to see in the dollar boxes constantly. Commandees, Demon, the backrun DC stuff. We picked those up for $1 when I was a kid, or even 25 cents. Now they're $20-30 a hit, and the respect on them is, there's a lot more respect for those kind of works. Where back then it was just, they were funny books. You sold them at a time, you rolled them up and stuck them in your back pocket. They were out there as disposable material, and a lot of these guys weren't looking at what they were doing as art as much as, I'm getting $50 if I draw a page of this and send it in to the printer. And once I do 20 pages, I get X amount of money, and then I can pay X amount of bills. So a lot of these guys, even up through Perez and Byrne, will tell you, Perez is sitting there drawing 5 pages a day so he can feed his family, And all of those guys, those great workhorses out there, were churning out a page rate. They weren't churning out, they were paying their bills and putting food on their table and maybe able to afford their house payment. But a lot of these guys had wives and who also held down jobs or kept, everything running while they were sitting there at the board. I mean, who knows where Kirby would have been without Roz, or even Lee without his wife. The same way, because Lee was at the office 12, 14, 16 hours a day trying to keep Marvel running. And the majority of that time, they were teetering on the edge of bankruptcy.
And when Lee went home, he'd write the books. Or dialogue the books.
Good morning. Good morning, John. Hope you're still doing.
Hi, John.
I sent you a link. He said he's out running with the wife this morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Heather. Hope you're doing well. Joe has another question. Why didn't you publish your early work then, Glenn? Just curious why you didn't publish them, especially now when self-publishing is much easier to do.
I did publish a line of comics in the mid-'80s in the what's known as the black and white glut. Whether they're any good or not, I don't know. But me and a couple of people put out a line of comics. But we just, I think I think I just moved sort of sideways a little. I'm a graphic designer, really, my main career. I do illustrations and things like that. And I've always wanted to do comics, but I'm not sure whether I could have produced, the quality really. But the answer to the question, I did publish in the 80s, but everybody else did as well. So
it's like two different skill sets. There's so many different skill sets that you can get into in publishing small press alternative comics. You got more into the production end, the commercial, the graphic art end. Anybody picking up your magazine, Comics Unlimited, it's available over at Amazon, or your Super Spies. That's also available over there. They open it up there, they will see an incredibly professionally done, done by a professional, laid out magazine style work done on the very highest order.
Well, so thank you for that.
All you got to do is open the covers and you'll see that, Glenn. But you work at it. But anyway, it's a different skill set than having to hit a page a day or 5 pages a day, or drawing out comics.
Well, when I was younger, my dad said to me, when I was started doing artwork, he said, learn everything you can and don't be a master of one thing. Be a jack of all trades and do all the jobs. And I did that, and I do that, as you know, with the magazines. I design it, I write it, I edit it, I even put my own little cartoons in sometimes. But as I've said to you before, a couple of weeks ago, I spend most of my time these days promoting other people's work, and I've got that much to do, designing it, getting people, getting on people's backs for articles and doing all that kind of thing, and then uploading it and clearing it and checking it with Amazon and all this kind of stuff. I don't get a chance to do much drawing, and I get pissed off sometimes, and I just sort of throw it all in the bin and just do some drawing, But I always come back to it. But I do like doing. It's like with the books. I do like a different job on my desk every day. Many years ago, I was working freelance. Well, I still work freelance, but working freelance for several publishers. And one day I'd be designing a wrestling magazine. The next day I'd be drawing Postman Pat, and then the next day I'd be writing an article. And I like that kind of flexibility that I have, and that I don't know about expertise, but I can do many things. But I do seem to be my own worst enemy and be victim of promoting other people's stuff most of the time, trying to get these magazines out, and there's not a lot of my stuff in there.
That's what I really found printing Arrow Comics, is that we were doing 3 books a month, and I was doing the production work, the inside front cover, the ad pages, the letters column, or whatever needed to be done, and promoting other people's work. And my time to do my stuff got to be very very limited. And now I literally have to fight through commercial work whenever there's a gap in commercial work. I'm working like a dog on my own stuff, but it is so easy to get caught up in that. But also when it comes to laying out a page, to doing that kind of production work, that does take an incredible level of artistic skill to have it and to be attractive. Anybody can lay down 2 columns of type or slab a picture into the bottom or top of one or middle of one of the columns, but to do it and to make it attractive and to have that broken up and be pleasing to the eye, very few people are able to do that skillfully. If you go back and look at Steranko's work, who did Nick Fury, and even he wasn't one of those workhorses. He did a lot of work for a short period of time in comics, but the majority of his skill set is also in the illustration field, in taking his time and doing a competent layout, because you can tell he sits there and he thinks about composition and how things look all over. And if you're ever lucky enough to bump into a retailer that has a large enough backstock, or you see it at a show, any of his old media scene magazines, they are a joy to open, not just for the articles inside, but for the layouts that he did, because you could tell he was sitting there playing. He would put columns of text diagonally on a page in order to try to break up that layout, large titles and unusual positions, pictures in odd places. It's really an amazing, and it can be a lot of fun if that's what you like to do, a skill to keep that and to keep a variety up from page to page.
That's right. What I do, the way I work is when I get an article, I either write it or somebody gives me an article. I see how many words it is. I usually ask for articles of about 1,500 words, because I've got to be aware that you can't fill a 100-page magazine with 2 articles.
Yeah,
they've got to be a certain length. So I wouldn't. I usually get between 1,000 and 2,000 words. That's probably about right. Maybe a bit more, but it depends. But then I look at the artwork, because it's obviously, for me, for everybody, this medium is a visual medium. So, and we've got such staggering artwork. I've just done a piece on Frank Bellamy, that we spoke about him the other week. I've just written a piece on that, and his artwork is absolutely incredible. Yeah. So I've got to take into consideration the fact that the artwork is staggering, and it's the artwork you want to see. So then I can mess with that, and I try and get articles to last about 6 pages, because I think that's long enough for the attention span. They might be 8 pages, sometimes 4, but it depends on the artwork. I mean, Frank Bellamy could fill it. I could just print 100 pages of Frank Bellamy artwork, because it's just incredible stuff. Yes. And people don't realize, I don't think, what goes into the production of these things, and it isn't just give a switch on a computer or however you do it. There's a lot of thought goes into this. And like you said, while you're thinking about what that page looks like, you're not doing your cartoon.
Yeah.
And that can weigh you down, because last year I wrote my dad's book. I put everything down, and when I was sick of writing, I'd do a drawing for it. I just had about 10 illustrations in it, I think. And so I was changing, but that was all I was thinking about. And I think Helen thought she was on Normandy Beach half the time. And I think I was there, writing this book. And then I had a break, and then did other, real work, if you will. Yeah. And then I thought, well, I better write my rap.
In hand quotes. Yeah, real work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote my Rapanui book. And I looked through the photographs. I've not looked through all the photographs for a few years now, and some of these photographs are absolutely staggering. Not my photography so much, but the beautiful sunsets and the Moai and all that kind of thing. And I struggle there. It's 235 pages, this book, and there's only 200 photographs in it. And like I said, I've got about 1,400 photographs. So obviously pick the best ones, but it's just a different discipline for things. I had to write the book, and then I design the book.
Right.
And when I'm writing, I'm also designing it in my head, and I'm thinking this is going to fit here and all this kind of thing.
Sure.
And then I have to select the photographs or the artwork. So there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time and effort goes into this.
Oh yeah.
As you know as well, as we just said, that you don't get time to do the drawing you want to do.
Yeah, I was only putting together 3 comics a month. The majority of the interior work was all from other people, and I still had no time for my own work.
Well, you've got to keep asking where the artwork is, don't you? Yeah. With these people, you've got to keep. You're in charge. You've got to bring this thing together. Because I know that if I didn't cajole some people, they'd never do anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Which let's take a look at
that. Here's the cover for Comics Unlimited, number 4. Right?
Not my artwork, I must add. It's not my artwork. It's John Floyd. John Floyd has drawn those for me.
And that's the front and back cover.
Yeah, wraparound cover, yeah. That's out in mid-January.
Have an article on Dino Mutt coming.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Guano guy's in there. Sure. Mark Darden's in there. Darden.
Yep, we've had him on the program a number of times before. Yeah, absolutely.
He's written me a great article. Really, a really honest account. I was really impressed with it. Yeah, because he's talking from himself. I can tell, and I like that. It was a really good slant on it. But John Floyd did this artwork for me for the front and back cover, and he's written an article about Joe Sinnott. Obviously, he worked with Joe Sinnott, inking backgrounds on Thor and things like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he worked with Barry. He works a lot with Barry Smith, Barry Windsor Smith, and he's done a great article. This is going to be a good issue.
So yeah, it's amazing cover. Both pieces are really great.
Yeah, he's a good artist, John. He's a good lad, and you just keep doing it, don't you? It's like Kirby. You just get to the desk and you just get on with it and do it. And sometimes you don't want to do it, and sometimes you can't wait. So it's just a real person, Just get on with it.
Yep.
But one day, this is issue 4, and one day I'm going to have one of my drawings on the cover. Do you know
there you go.
One of my work on the cover.
Sure.
So why not? It's my magazine.
Yes. And you keep saying, I was doing the same thing. And the same thing came up with the Flint Comics paper also. It was once a month, and it was only 24 pages, maybe 20 or 32 at times. But it still took up the majority of my time. I was never able to get enough of my material in there. And the only time really I ended up with a cover, unless I planned it a couple of months in advance, as if whoever was supposed to do the cover didn't deliver. Yeah. And then 9 times out of 10, I'm sitting there in my mind slopping a cover together just to get something up there in time, and that was usually 24 hours before I took it to the printer. Right. So it all came together sometimes embarrassingly badly, but it still needed a cover to get it done, get it out.
Of course, yeah. I usually work on. I do have a spare cover that I can drop in if people, don't meet the deadline. So you just have to get ready for it, don't you?
That was good for me for about 6 months. I had a couple of spare covers, and then they started becoming the cover, and then I was behind again. Yeah,
that's right. So it's all good fun, isn't it? It's what we do.
Yeah.
And Kirby was right. It'll break your heart. But,
a lot of times, like October, I'm chasing after people to try to get a Christmas piece in.
Yeah.
And then late November, I'm doing the cover anyway.
Well, I mentioned to my writers about doing a Christmas special. Mm-hmm. Nothing arrived, so it's not going to happen. So I can't write 100 pages myself. Certainly not in a month,
Yep.
So
I hear you. Back to the chat. Meredith says hello. Hello, Meredith. You're welcome to come in. Russ from Comic Book Black Belt says if Kirby or Buscema could have used digital, they would have. Yep. I'm sure they would have back then when they were, because nobody thought the original artwork would be worth much of anything. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, they'd have cranked it right out. Best result as quickly as possible. Yep.
Yeah, Kirby would have been doing 50 pages a day instead of 5.
At least 10. Yeah. Russ says exercise regime and eat as well as possible. Only way to survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe says nice cover. Says looking forward to seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good issue. It's really good.
When does number 4?
Mid-January.
Mid-January. Awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Just a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
Cool. And that's Comics Unlimited. And again, for our radio listening audience, I know I didn't say anything at the top of the hour, but you are listening to an episode of Sunday Funnies for December 20th, 2020. We're glad you are listening. I have no idea what our numbers are because that's Variant's department, and he is not in front of that bit of counting machinery this morning. So to everybody out there, just know that we appreciate each and every one of you listening. We're here talking comics. I'm your host, Randy Zimmerman, and my guest today is Mr. Glenn B. Flemming, who has written and produced a lot of books. You can catch his Comics Unlimited and Super Spy magazine right now. Magazines, I should say. There's 3 Comics Unlimited already and a Super Spies magazine, right? And then
that's right.
Issue 3 was a Golden Age special.
No, that's a separate issue. So there's 4 issues. There's 3 issues of Comics Unlimited, and there's a Golden Age special, which is a separate magazine. Sweet. Another 100-pager. On
top of the Super Spies magazine.
And then the Super Spies, that's another one.
And that's a collection from work that you had done previously. The Super Spies book.
Yeah, I produced that when I was doing Crikey 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
It's got a couple of old articles in it, but it's got mainly new ones in it. So it's a new magazine. It's not just a reprint.
Never before published work.
Sorry?
Never before published
That's right. Yeah. Most of it. Yeah, some of it has been published before, but most of it is new. So check it out. That's about TV programs, and film. Obviously about spies and Man from U.N.C.L.E. and James Bond and Gemini Man that I never saw, but the guy who wrote the article said it was brilliant. Gemini Man.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah. What's he called? It's the Alias Smith and Jones. Ben Murphy, is it?
Ben Murphy?
Ben Murphy was in it, yeah.
Alias Smith and Jones?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a Western?
Yes, but Ben Murphy was in that one as well.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
And then there's a review on books and things like that in it. Yes, it's a good read. It's a good read. Good stuff in there. I don't know whether there will be another number 2 though. I'm not sure about that.
Well, it depends upon the sales of one.
Of course, yeah.
If you want to read stuff about spies,
you
better run out there and buy that first one. And how much are those issues over on Amazon?
They're £9.99, so I guess it's about $12
US,
like that. Yeah,
pretty typical anymore for a 100-page magazine.
Yeah. That's just the best price I could do. It's like I say, there's a lot of work goes into these things, and people appreciate that. So I think they're worth it. I kept it down as much as I could,
And then that's the kind of material that Amazon will print on demand, or do you have a large print run that Amazon's sitting on?
No, it's print on demand. As I said before, when Crikey went down, when Borders went down, I'm still smarting from that money that I lost. So having them printed and then having to archive them and then send them out in the post and all that kind of stuff, I'm a bit wary of that. When this new print on demand is great because it doesn't, it's print on demand. If people buy it, they buy it, and they're buying it, so they get their copy from wherever.
Right.
It's quite interesting that because when I get my copies, my publisher's copies, they're from I think it's either Hungary or Romania, or maybe Poland. They print it, but yours, the one you get, will be printed in the United States. So I don't know. Obviously, there's postage involved.
Well, anymore with shipping and that, it's probably cheaper to print here in the States than it is to print overseas and ship it.
Yeah, so
especially in small amounts. Yeah.
But for the comic people, I published Jack Kirby Variations on a Theme last year, which was another magazine that's there, and that's celebrating Jack Kirby. I've got a few articles in there. It's similar to Comics Unlimited, but it's just purely Jack Kirby. That's Jack Kirby Variations on a Theme.
They find that under Glenn B. Flemming.
If they put my name in there, all those things, the Kennedy books and the children's book, and they'll all come up on there.
And that's Glenn with 2 N's and Flemming with 1 M.
Yes. Yeah. And don't ask me if Ian Fleming is related, because if you do, I'll have to kill you.
Just because you're tired of having the question asked all the time.
Yeah, but I'm not. Perhaps. But they're all on there. There's lots of stuff on there that I've done. There's probably about 18 things on there, 18 publications on there now. Like I said before,
10 books, 8 magazines.
That's right, yeah. And with more to come. So I'm actually just finishing up issue 6 of Comics Unlimited now.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm sort of quite ahead.
I was going to ask you what's coming up. So.
Well, you'll have to see. There's all sorts of stuff coming up. I can tell you. I can.
Well, we know there'll be a Comics Unlimited 5 and 6 at least, folks.
Yeah. Well, in number 5 we've got Frank Bellamy, Starman, Thunderbirds.
See, I knew we were talking Supermarionation eventually.
Yeah. Well, you got to do it. You got to do it.
I put that in the warning as a warning in the description.
Yeah. And on the in number 6, I've done an article on Don Lawrence, because I'm going over these British artists again, like Ron Embleton and Mike Noble. I don't know whether you're aware of these artists, but
I am not. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to send you some then, because it's absolutely incredible.
I would probably be familiar with the art style a lot faster than the name.
Yeah, than the name. Yeah. Ron Embleton he drew lots of things. He drew in the 60s. He drew Stingray and Captain Scarlet, Marionation things. Mm-hmm. but he also did a lot of, you might have seen them, a lot of illustrations of Victorian England and things like this. You've probably seen some stuff. I'll send it to you. I'll show you. But Mike Noble is my favourite, I think, apart from Bellamy. His work on Fireball XL5 and things like that, and more Jerry Anderson stuff. I think he only died recently. He was about 88 or something.
That in the Century 21 magazine, or did he do separate?
Yeah. Well, both. He worked mainly on TV Century 21 in the 60s, and then he went into Look and Learn and Look In and all these magazines that we had, drawing various TV shows. But in the Bellamy piece, there's a fantastic drawing of Tom Baker that Bellamy did.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Sweet.
It's really something. It's really, and he can draw Daleks really well. Have you ever tried to draw a Dalek?
No.
Must be the hardest thing in the world to draw with that crazy shape.
Yeah.
But Frank Bellamy, well, he's slightly better artist than I am, and he managed to do it.
Yeah, undoubtedly master. So yeah.
So
it's turned out looking incredibly well.
But if you remember that Frank Bellamy died in 1976.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 50 years or whatever it is, 40 years, and his work is still better than most around. It's just incredible work, especially on Garth and things like that.
Yeah, well, especially remembering, again, he's working physical. And the majority of the work that he did, I don't ever remember seeing him use any kind of Zipatone sheet. It was always his hand stipple work, hand design work, just a true artisan, on the work. And he did the Garth comic strip for many years.
He did. I think he did that for about 5 years. He was doing that when he died, which again is just black and white, but it's just absolutely superb artwork. It's beautiful artwork. Amazing. Yeah. I don't know whether you've seen his African stuff with the rhinos and giraffes and stuff. Have you seen that kind of stuff?
No.
Just a brilliant illustrator. And I think he at one point he was going to give up doing comic work and go and live in Africa. Mm-hmm. So he could study all these animals, and he didn't do that. But his work on that kind of stuff is absolutely second to none.
I think the first time I saw him was on Dan Dare, from not
yeah.
And then of course when the Thunderbirds work came out, and I saw some of that, I'm like, oh, that's Frank Bellamy. Yeah, and it was real easy to find the signature some of the time.
Yeah, he's like Kirby and Steve Ditko in the way he
very
has
distinctive style.
Distinctive style. Yeah, but superb work. I was lucky enough to see. I was lucky enough to see some of his a piece of his Thunderbird work, and hold it. And he uses is it Pelican inks and stuff like Dr. Martin inks or something.
Yeah, Dr. Martin dies. Those are the colors.
That's it. Yeah, and it's just absolutely incredible.
Oh, I bet.
And his line work is just. I've never seen his pencil work. Never seen a piece of anything that was before it was inked or finished. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how he worked, because I know those he used to do the double spread in TV 21, center spread, and there'd usually be about 10 or 12 panels, and the design of the pages.
Sometimes it'd be a lot more than that, depending upon the story. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you along those lines, and when he would break it, the way he would break it up, obviously he was a designer as well. He'd break it up, like Steranko, breaking up the pages and things like that.
Now, he was probably working 2 up during that period too, right?
Yeah, they're quite big pieces of work. Those
pieces would have to be probably 3 feet by 2 feet, I would imagine.
3 feet? No, not
36 inches by 24 inches.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yes, I saw a couple of originals of Prince Valiant back in the day that Hal Foster would work on, and he would, a lot of that work is so amazing because he would spend all week drawing that Sunday page.
Wow.
And he did everything from writing to all the way through hand lettering and color indications or whatever he had to do. A lot of that stuff he did on his own all through the week, and you could tell that some of that work was so intricate. Bellamy's the exact same way. The detail on Thunderbirds, the thing that struck me is that he kept the characters looking like the marionettes that were in the TV show.
That's right.
That to me was just amazing to see.
Yeah, the other artists do that as well. On TV 21, they all you can see who it is. other than the name. You know, they all have different varying styles, but it's fantastic artwork, and I just love that color stuff. You know.
Yeah.
It took me
They put those together into albums
Yeah.
quite a few years ago. I've got a large number of them, like a half a dozen Thunderbirds, at least one or two of the Stingrays.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
the Stingray,
XL5. So
the Stingray will be Ron Embleton mostly.
Okay.
So if you look at that, it's Ron Embleton.
Yeah, I will. I'll go back and dig those up when I run across them on a shelf.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It's just lovely work.
Amazing stuff.
They found, I don't, you know, the Captain Scarlet show. You've seen Captain Scarlet.
Sure.
Well, you know, at the end, with the end credits, there's there's illustrations of him.
Yeah.
Those are Ron Embleton.
Are they really? Okay.
Yeah, and they found them about 10 years ago in this one of the, I think it was Alan Fennell who used to write it, and he was the editor, and he died, and his family went into his office, and in the one of the filing cabinets was all this artwork, and it was the artwork from the closing credits.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was just there, and it's been there for 40 years, you know.
The thing that work really reminded me of as a kid, this is from my perspective as a kid in the States, and growing up and seeing this stuff on Saturday afternoon, syndicated probably long after it came out originally over in Britain. But the thing that hit me about those end credit illustrations is that they looked like the painted covers that you'd see on a lot of the Gold Key comics of the day.
Yeah.
Where you had these fine illustrators doing these almost pulp magazine paintings. And it took us a long time as a society to actually add some value to those old pulp magazine paintings, because there's a lot of beautiful artwork associated with that people just dismissed because it was in them sleazy little pulp magazines.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you had who was that? Virgil Finlay, artist working in there, and the same stipple type technique, not same style by far, but the technique that Bellamy would do with this beautiful, because he was dealing with dots and solids and black and whites, only it was printed on way inferior paper. And his work to come through like that and be that beautiful is just amazing to think of what those originals would have looked like.
Yeah. I wonder where they are now.
They're all over the place, I would imagine, the ones that are still surviving. You still see occasional pulp magazine cover painting pop up on Antiques Roadshow every once in a while.
Wow.
And here in the States, and they'll point out that originally, this thing was looked at as maybe $100 or $200, but within the last 10, 20 years, people have realized the sheer art that was in it, as these guys were producing, just like the comic book guys. They were knocking paintings off for covers 3 or 5 a month and just kicking them out to be printed. And some of that work that luckily they a lot of that material they've been able to put into coffee table type books. Those illustrations are amazing. It makes for a beautiful art book on a very unique subject, especially like the old detective noirish covers that they used to have. It's just crazy.
It's beautiful stuff. Yeah.
And again, to go back to Steranko, he did a whole series of a dozen or so shadow paintings like that for the paperback books that are also just landmark as far as getting the shadow look down and the motif and that kind of thing.
Did you see Steranko's work on Outland, that film Outland?
I haven't seen it in years.
Right.
I saw it when I was a kid, and I haven't had another copy since.
Right.
I have been looking for a copy of his Chandler book for quite a while, and I know Byron, that came out originally in digest size. I had a copy of that for quite a few years, and then it just disappeared. And I believe Byron Price, who was the publisher on that, had a bigger version of it, more of a magazine trade production of that done, just to blow that artwork up to show how fantastic it was.
Yeah,
I'd really like to get a copy of that sometime soon.
Steranko got his artwork back on Shield, didn't he? I'm sure I read it was part of his contract.
I'd have insisted on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the kind of Steranko would know a lot more about that than I would, but I would imagine he did. So he was.
So I hope he's got it home.
It's like the last of the old, what I would consider to be the old masters. You still see him doing the convention circuit when there is a convention circuit around, and he is still the dashing, gentleman that you would think his work suggests it to be.
Yeah, with his tie on, with his necktie.
Oh yeah, tie and suit. He always looks good at the show.
How old is he? He's about 82 now, isn't he?
So yeah, but he's still spry. He's
Mr. Miracle, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He is. But he has a trip to talk to. If you ever catch him at a show, he is amazing to sit and talk to, or just to stand in line waiting for him. For the folks to get through. He's got a lot of stories, and he loves telling them. Listen
to this one. Back in, I think it was about 1986, I went to the London convention, and Dave Gibbons of Watchmen. He did a panel with Will Eisner. Will Eisner was there, and then when it finished, everybody went to another talk in another part of the building, and all these people were just piling past this guy, and this guy was Will Eisner, and nobody knew, even though they'd just been listening to him on the panel. It appeared that nobody was listening to him. There's just this guy standing there. So I went up to him and I said to him, that was great, that Will. I really enjoyed it. And he was, I don't know whether you ever met him or anything, but he's a really nice guy.
Oh, yeah. And, no, I was lucky to meet him a couple times. And,
right.
Go ahead and finish yours.
And I just made him laugh because I said to him, thanks for all that fantastic work that you did, and all that. And he's saying, yeah, great. And I held out my hand and I shook his hand and I said, I've achieved an ambition now. And he said, what's that? And I said, I've shook the hand that shook the hand of Jack Kirby. So he thought that, so he just laughed because I've not met Kirby at that point. So.
I met Will once at in San Diego, and I met him the following San Diego, and we had talked very briefly, just very briefly. But the second time I met him, it was in the hall. We were passing, and I said, hello, Mr. Eisner, and he stopped and goes, Randy, how you doing, Randy? How's Arrow Comics? And I was just, I did the same. I did the same Geek Boy thing the first time I met George Perez. I was like, oh, real good, thanks. What do you say? It's like just not only did he know me, knew who I was, knew my name, knew my the company that I was printing under, knew the product I was doing, just floored the heck out of me. But it was told me that's somebody who is always watching the market, and it doesn't matter where you sit on that scale. He's aware because he knows what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
And that just impressed the daylights out of me.
I was bowled over that. When I went to see Kirby the first time, I did a drawing, a little cartoon for him, and I gave it to him, and it was in a frame. This was in 1988. And then 3 years later, when I went back into his studio with him, my drawing was next to his stuff on the mantelpiece in his studio, and I didn't ask, but I just wonder whether that was there all the time, or whether maybe Roz knew it was me who was coming. You know what I mean? But it was there.
Could have had a file cabinet of people's works already in the frame. It's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, Glenn Flemming, I got that right here. Put that up.
but it was there. That was like, wow. And I said, I think it was Roz, because I said to Jack,
it's amazing.
I did that.
Yeah.
And he said, oh yeah. People send me these things all the time. Like he didn't believe me, But it was great seeing it. I've got a photograph of me with him, and in the background you can see this artwork on the mantelpiece.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's amazing. Kirby was somebody I was at a few shows that he was at, was always busy. He was always busy, and I never got quite frankly, the balls to go up and say hello or shake his hand. Right. Never did, because by the time I was at the same conventions that Kirby was at, I had a appreciation for his work, and it was like, oh, Jack Kirby's up there, I need to go up there and shake his hand. Yeah, Well, I did get to meet Stan Lee a couple times. That was right. Like I did a New York show that I'll always regret. Not doing the show. The show was great, but I was back to back with Lee Falk, and I never turned around and said hello. And that was somebody that I wish I'd have stopped even just for a second, shaking his hand and gotten an autograph. And and just told him that I grew up reading Mandrake and Phantom, even in reprints, anything that I could get my hands on with those characters because of his stuff, and just
wow.
And I've just kicked myself in the butt. I didn't find out he was even there, behind me until after the show was. What? He was there? What? Where was he? Oh, he was right behind you.
Oh,
the opportunity.
I went over to a convention, and there were Alan Moore. I'd met him before, and I'd met Gil Kane before, but there was Alan Moore, Gil Kane, and somebody else, I can't remember who it was now, standing at this doorway, just talking amongst themselves. So I thought, well, you, like I said, if you don't ask, the answer's no. So I went over to them, and I said, could I have a word with you, gentlemen? And as they turned to me, this guy came out of nowhere and said, right, guys, we got to go. And they just walked off. So they didn't even, they were just going to. So that was the closest I got to speaking to Gil Kane.
Shortly after that, I went and nabbed a large sketchbook, and I went around and made myself go around and start talking to these guys, because I wasn't going to take that and miss that opportunity again. I got Will to sign the cover. One of the times I got Julie Schwartz and Jim Shooter, some of the big guys out there. Anytime there was a big guy at a show, I'd take that sketchbook up and at least get an autograph from them and tell them that I grew up in reading their stuff and really appreciated their work. So
I went to a convention, and
you have to do that, because you'll regret it if you don't.
Of course, yeah. I went to a convention when Chaikin was doing American Flag, and he was like the hottest thing, and he was with his wife, and he was sitting next to me in the audience, right?
Okay.
And I think he won six awards, and he kept getting up, and then he sent his wife up to get it, and I said to him, "Can I go up for the next one?" And he looked at me and he said, "No." He was really pissed off. He just looked at him, no, like with a bloody hell you, because he said to his wife, excuse me, he said to his wife, "Oh, I don't want to go up again. You go up." And then she said, "Oh, I don't want to go up again." So I said, "Can I go up?" No,
no, that's shaking. That's shaking. Yeah. He's a very direct individual, to put it nicely. Yeah.
But it's
funny. Good. It's hilarious. I was sitting next to Al Williamson at a show one time, and I asked him to do a sketch. I don't do sketches, kid. I don't do sketches of chess. I don't. Okay, that's fine. I totally understandable. It's Al Williamson, after all. He went and did a panel, and then come back and was sitting there, and nobody was around the table, and he leaned over and said, "Still got that sketchbook, kid?" I gave him that book, and he sat there and did this wandering line with a ballpoint pen. Boom. There you go. Thanks for watching my stuff.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
Yeah.
Have you met Walt Simonson?
No, on the list. I haven't been to a show that he's been at. I believe he's over on the way over on the East Coast, and I'm in Michigan. So
yeah,
he doesn't get this way very often, or at least not that I'm aware of. So
I went to a convention. He was there, and he was being interviewed by these guys who used to do this newsletter thing, a fanzine, and they were asking him the most silly questions, like what's going to happen in the next issue of Thor and all this kind of thing. And I could see he was pissed off with this kind of, sort of fan, Anyway, so I was talking to him about Jack Kirby and things like that, and I'll say it, having a bit more of an interesting conversation as to, because he's not going to tell you what's going to happen, is he? They were trying to get the information out of him.
Right.
Anyway, he got called away to do a panel, so that he went away. And then about 5 minutes later, he came back to me. These guys had gone. He came back to me. He said, "Oh, you're there." He said, "Let's carry on with that talk." He said, "My panel's been cancelled for half an hour. Let's carry on with that talk about Jack Kirby." He came and found me.
Good. Yeah.
Which I thought, wow, he didn't have to do that. He could have gone anywhere. That's fantastic. But he's a nice bloke. He just seems like a nice man.
Well, we hold these people in such high esteem, and they're way up there for us, especially if we're in this business or we've done any type of comic work or whatever. But they're just average Joes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're a lot of times they're just workers. They're just workhorses that are there. They're lucky to be at a show. They look at a show as being a place to relax and actually talk to people who appreciate what you've done, you know.
Yeah.
And to catch that every one, you know, it's so easy to geek out on these people because you really admire them, but really they're just there to talk to you, you know.
Well,
and they want to talk to you, or else they wouldn't be there. If they didn't want to be there, they'd sit in front of their desk and just keep working.
Of course.
Like Alex Toth for the never did shows because he didn't want to deal with people. No. He just, you know, he was a curmudgeon and he was a cranky old dude and didn't want, you know, get away from me, kid, that kind of thing. And never did shows, but I bet he would end up doing shows eventually, you know, if he had lived a little bit longer, because he didn't realize how much appreciation people had for his work until very close to the time of his passing. He got really sick and people sent him a bunch of get well soon letters, or, you know, wishful, get well soon letters. And he, from what I understand, he just broke down bawling. And never realized that he was that appreciated.
Yeah. Well, you'll see on that the film I made, the Kirby, My Visit to Kirby. When you watch it, I talk about I was 32 years old when I went to see him, and I got to his house, and Roz had made us this lunch and everything. I couldn't speak for an hour. I couldn't speak, and he kept asking me who I was and what I was doing there. You know, like, everybody else was talking, I just couldn't speak. I was just so in awe of him, you know. But he was just a genuine man, you know, a genuine person. Yeah. And Roz was absolutely incredible, beautiful woman, and just incredible woman. And she had a kind of a steel to her that you wouldn't mess with her. You wouldn't get very far if you messed.
From what I've read though of them, it's that Roz had an idea of what his worth was, and,
yes,
and what his importance was.
Yeah,
and the people that came to see him, how important that was to those people. Yeah. Where Jack was a workhorse. Oh yeah, you like what I draw here, kid? You know, that kind of thing. Where Roz would was really the overseer.
Yeah, she was
on the talent.
Just before he left Marvel in 1970. Apparently, she was taking pages out and characters out and saying you're gonna have to redraw this because you're not given Marvel this. You know, she was taking stuff out of his work because she was the smart one, really.
Yeah,
great woman though, great woman.
Well, that's the great relationships, the yin and the yang, the creative and the business side of the left and right part of the brain. You know, and Kirby was definitely on the creative side. I would imagine that there were times that he was aloof and was out in a completely different reality than the one that he was physically in. Yes. And a lot of that stuff, just by reading a lot of the material that he did. Again, the farther along he got, the crazier, more imaginative his material became. It's just
and you get those idiots saying, somebody asked me if I thought he was on drugs with all the stuff he was putting out and Ditko.
There was a big discussion about that for a while. Yeah, because that was during the drug days, you know, and the word comes out that a lot of the folks working on Fantasia might have been altered when they were working on that material as well. And you go, well, wasn't all of this crazy stuff? No, he grew up in an imaginative. Yeah, and plus, if you ever watch the war documentary that there is about him, he went through some really crazy stuff in the war. So I imagine getting away, doing the imaginative material was really where his love was. And it remained until he passed, you know.
Well, it was therapeutic as well because he didn't do war stories for 10 years, did he?
Yeah.
After he got back, because Roz said he used to wake up screaming and, you know, dreaming and all this kind of thing.
A lot of the guys that came back from there had that happen to. It was not an uncommon occurrence. But yet, if you look at Eisner's work on the other hand, Eisner became very realistic, very grounded, started doing very slice of life graphic novels. Very rarely would he go off into a different area or do anything that was science fiction or very hard, never any real fantasy type material. He adapted a few novels before he passed as graphic novels, but a lot of the stuff that he ended up doing was very slice of life, very much like American Splendor almost, in being grounded in reality. Very
but
fast.
He didn't see combat though, did he, Will Eisner?
Didn't see what?
Combat.
No, I'm not sure. No, I don't think he did. I think he drew. during the war. He did a lot of instructional work. That's where he started PS. He was really involved in PS magazine, if I remember that. Did a lot of spearheaded that for probably the whole time he was in service. Yeah.
I'll tell you some artwork, some original artwork I'd like to see. And that's Joe Kubert. I've never seen any originals of his.
I'm trying to think if I've ever seen any. I don't remember, but I probably have at a show at least once or twice. But the thing that amazes me about Kubert, and I got his text. He did one of the text stories from the Bernelli books. That's a Western property. The story was very, very cliched, very full of Western tropes, but it was amazing to see Kubert do like 168 or so pages, and this was pretty close to his passing. This like a year or so before he passed, he kicked that book out, and his brushwork always amazed me. Ever since Tarzan, I noticed him on Tarzan. Back when he did Tarzan for DC, and you're sitting there looking at it and going, that looks really simple, but it's very deceptive, because he was down to a point where he could take a swipe of a brush and there was a shadow and anything that you needed. And, he was such such a master of what he was doing, had his own very individual look to his stuff that, it's just amazing.
He'd get it in one. He wouldn't need a computer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I saw a picture of his reference files, and it was a file cabinet upon a wall of file cabinets.
Yeah.
Because that's what you did back then. You kept photo reference like crazy. You kept it. That's why all of us old guys have so many books. Like you've got back behind you. Yeah. I got back behind that sheet. We got all these old books where nowadays you just call up an image on Bing or Google and boom, there it is. But back then we were taking pieces out of magazines and keeping file folders of, I'm sure he had a whole file on horses, and if multiple other than just one, different costumes and all of that. Somebody else I'm sure was like that was John Severin, because a lot of his work was so exact. Well, you get to see every button on every Civil War jacket. Just amazing.
When I was a kid, I remember my dad asking me if I would not cut the magazines up until he'd read them.
I can see where that would be a problem.
So, it's an interesting story for you. Or maybe when I was 15, I was leaving school, and I went to the what we call the careers officer to see what we wanted to do. And I told him I wanted to be a comic book artist. And he said to me, "Nobody draws comics.
Yeah.
Have you thought of being a mechanic?" Well, I can drive a car, but I don't know how they work. I couldn't fix it if it broke down. But I remember thinking, if nobody draws comics, who's drawn those 600 under my bed?
Yeah.
But anyway, it worked out okay. I went to art college and went into graphics and all that kind of thing. But I just thought how narrow-minded he didn't. Why didn't he just say, "I don't know how you do that," rather than nobody does that, because clearly they did. I suppose it's a different time now, but
they were looking out for your future, and nobody draws comics, son. Everybody works on cars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Well, there was a guy at school in my class, and we had a lesson called GP, and people were making fiberglass canoes and things like this, And I was working on the printing press. I did the printing for the football fixtures.
Yeah.
And there was this guy and this lad, and he had there was a car engine on a bench, and the entire engine was just on the bench, and he took it apart. And I thought I could take that apart, and then he put it back together again, and I thought I couldn't do that, but I could draw it.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? But sure. I was amazed that he could put it back together, because anybody can take anything apart, can't they? Sure. But he put it back together again, and his hands were black, full of oil and grease and stuff. And I thought, I don't want to do that. But you know what I mean? But I'll draw it for you if you want to.
Yeah.
So, that was it. That was good. What's this?
Joe says, "Are you willing to shows in the States once the world opens back up again, Glenn? Just curious if you're willing to promote the magazines and conventions?
Of course, if I can get over there, yeah. It's been a while now. Too long since I've been to America. Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
Pops in the house. Randy Glenn. Good Sunday to you. Good Sunday to you too, Pops. Hope you're doing well, buddy. It says that's the coolest thing when a person of stature remembers you in that detail. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Literally floored me. It was one of those. You see those Tex Avery cartoons with the wolf looking at the girl. That was me. Only it was my jaw. Just right to the floor. It's like, yeah, Mr. Eisner. Yeah, you know. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you,
funny
Steve.
Story. Laugh my ass off. That's a great story, Glenn. No, LOL. Yeah, Chaikin. No. That's Chaikin. That's perfect Chaikin right there. Can I? No.
6 awards he got. 6. Best series, best art, best writing. The lot he cleaned up. It was
American Flag was big. That and nowadays, very rare for anybody even to mention it.
Yeah, it's a great series. It's really is good.
So if you haven't caught those American flags, they have put them together into collections at one time or another. I don't know when the last time that was collected, but it's well worth getting.
Yeah, he was Chaikin with that series was pushing boundaries as well, wasn't he? Yeah. With his artwork and stuff. It's fantastic work.
Yeah, it was very that's when he really came into his own as far as that particular style. He ended up doing that for that it still does that particular kind of work to this day.
Yeah.
That's really where he cut his teeth and set that Chaikin style up, was in an American Flag. Before that, he was always just a little scratchy and a little loose. You look at Star Wars, for example, it's the most reprinted A New Hope adaptation that Chaikin did as a wet behind the ears kid. It's the most reprinted product that Marvel has ever done. And it's probably the product that Chaikin does this for every time somebody brings it to him. It's like, yeah, I did that a long time ago, kid. You really, I'm glad you like it. Let me sign it. Here.
It's the same with Barry Smith when he did those early Avengers and X-Men. They were appalling. When apparently Stan Lee said to him, "Draw like Kirby." Yeah. So he did, but he didn't. That's not what he meant. He meant the storytelling aspect. But he's a fine artist, isn't he, Barry Smith? He's not. I don't consider him a comics artist at all. He's an illustrator, a fine artist.
Oh yeah, very much so. Keith Giffen has that same story. Yeah. That when he went up to the offices, they told him to draw like Kirby. So there is a Killraven, a bunch of fill-ins. One of them was Killraven, and then he did a short stint on the Defenders around in the 50s range with David Anthony Kraft. And then until he took his stuff in one day and he got called into the offices, and Romita goes, "Kid, your stuff's great, but dude, you draw way too much like Kirby."
Defenders is in Comics Unlimited as well next issue.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Listen, I don't know what you cover in that, but yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's a 6-part series.
Oh,
a lot to go on that one.
That was my book growing up. Everybody else could be in Avengers or into Justice League. I was Defenders and Justice Society all the way. That was me.
Right. I was only Marvel.
I love that. The oddball combination of characters just really struck me. Excuse me, just for a minute. We are closing out. We have closed down on that 2-hour mark. Glenn, why don't you tell people how folks can get a hold of you?
Simple. You can get me at comicsunlimitedmagazine@gmail.com. That's the best place. I'm still, like I said to you, as I keep telling you all the time, I'm still trying to build my website back up again after it was hacked a year or so ago. So that's the best place. comicsunlimitedmagazine@gmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Okay. Plus, you can get those Comics Unlimited issues at Amazon. You will have them available once you get your site up.
Yes,
for sale from you directly.
Maybe, hopefully, yes, hopefully, yeah.
But you can definitely catch those Comics Unlimited over at Amazon.
Yes, get them all.
Do look for that. The 4th issue will be out in the middle of January.
Yeah.
With a special focus on remembering Joe Sinnott.
Well, just one article on that. It's not the entire magazine. It's just that's the main article.
The main article.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. I am I've been your host, Randy Zimmerman. You can find me on Facebook under Randy Zimmerman. You can find me at Twitter under Randy Zim. You can find me on YouTube under the Zim Geek channel. That's ZIMMGEEK, where I put up some cartooning instructionals and every once in a while a video about the comic market. But of course, you're going to be able to find me the most here on the Indie Volt Radio Network. Our next broadcast here is on Tuesday, where we do the Live Wire, our main podcast. That's on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Coming up tomorrow night at 9 p.m., we're going to have a the premiere of a series that we're happy to bring to you, done by Eric Hodson and Michael Oden, that covers webtoons and digital comics, called It Came from the Webtoon. Make sure you tune in for that. That'll start at 9 p.m. tomorrow on Monday, and hopefully that'll be a regular Monday institution from now on. That'll have webtoon creators, how to do your own web strip, and try to help folks out there that want to work in that format digitally. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. we have Geekgasm, that's brought to you primarily or hosted by the Indie Princess. But right now we have Meredith Logren and Daphne Lage working on that program, where we talk about comics and media from a female perspective. Hopefully we get a little bit more adult over on that program. Then Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. we do the Breakfast Buzz, where I'm back co-hosting with Varian Grant hosting, where we talk about the comics industry. And then again here on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., we'll be back once again for the Sunday Funnies. We deeply appreciate everybody that's been listening. We hope you have a great rest of the day, wherever you're at in the world. And we wish you only the best. Any last words, Glenn? Anything we might have forgotten?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for having me on as usual. It's been great.
See how fast them 2 hours zip by, and it's just you and me. Holy crap. Yeah.
We don't need anybody else.
You get long-winded. Absolutely.
It gives us a chance to get all these Howard Chaykin stories out, doesn't it?
All these old stories, these old curmudgeons. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we have the best. We have the best time. We have the best time, the best music, and everything. You see.
Right. Yep. If you get a chance, pop over to Amazon. Look at Glenn B. Flemming, Glenn, B as in boy, and then Flemming, Fleming. And take a look at the variety of works that Glenn has done. There's a book out there for everybody.
Yeah, just about, yeah.
And again, we wish you the very best. We're always available at IndieVolt Live and IndieVolt.com. Feel free to pop over there, drop us a line through IndieVolt Live at IndieVolt.com. Give us suggestions or let us know how we're doing. And until next time, we'll see you. Let me catch what we've got here. Oh, before we leave, we have this important message.
I hope you're having a nice holiday season. I really do.
And we wish you only the best. We still want to say that our condolences to the family and friends of Ralph Griffith. He passed last Saturday. We miss him dearly, and wish his family and friends the best. They had a memorial service for him on Thursday, I believe. And we will have a memorial service for him once this bug goes away. We're going to have a big party, Glenn. We're going to see how many people we can get together and just not just a memorial for him, but touch base and catch up with everybody physically. You know,
yeah,
it's been too long. Missed the convention circuit. I'm sure.
I'd love to attend those conventions as well. I'd love to get over there and do that. Yeah, that would be something. I could meet Chaykin. I could say, and he could say, "Who are you?" And I could say, "Forget it." You know.
I have no idea who you are.
Yeah, who are you again?
Who are you again? Don't you know who I am? Absolutely. All right, folks. Take care. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
You've accomplished.
Do you draw the Flintstones naked?